Hello everyone, welcome to Gizmochina. I'm Kieran. If you are a Mi fan, you must miss Xiaomi a few years ago. At that time, Xiaomi's flagships were the most anticipated smartphone products in the market. The reason is simple, not because how innovative it was, but for its high cost performance. However, if you are familiar with Xiaomi's strategy, you know that Xiaomi also played some tricks with their marketing. For example, they used to emphasize the main features such as performance to create a flagship illusion with mid-range pricing, but actually cut off some features that affects general user experience, which was not easy to measure. But how about the Redmi K30 Ultra? We're pretty disappointed by K30 Pro as it cut out a very important feature in 2020, the high refresh rate display. Well, now they fixed it on the K30 Ultra with a 120Hz refresh rate display. But at the same time, its performance slipped back to the MTK Dimensity 1000 Plus from Snapdragon 865. The best price is no more for the flagship performance. Is it a kind of balance between performance and pricing, or over the whole user experience, it's just a regressive model with a better price compared to the K30 Pro? Let's start from the upgraded display. Actually, besides the 120Hz refresh rate, there is almost nothing different from the K30 Pro's display. It also supports HDR10 Plus and P3 color gamut. Partial peak brightness can also achieve 1200 nit. What's strange is that when we played 120p 4K HDR video in full screen, the K30 Ultra even cannot smoothly play it as what display on the Mi 10 Ultra and the K30 Pro, which is quite embarrassing. Because Xiaomi took the 120Hz refresh rate as the K30 Ultra's selling point, but due to the use of the new chipset, eventually it might meet the frame rate limit and just waste the excellent display. Just pay attention here. The K30 Ultra doesn't have an option for the whole scene 120Hz experience. Xiaomi hasn't achieved perfect optimization on the chipset, as it may cause heated problems or unusual power consumption. However, the K30 Ultra's Samsung display surprisingly has better image sharpness and better detail during playing 4K videos, which is even stranger. But about the HDR presentation, they were both doing a good job. The color presentation and dynamic range is very close to each other. Another detail that feels strange is frame loss. On the K30 Ultra's 120Hz display, the app dynamic animation is not as smooth as what we expected. Although the animations could fast respond to users' actions, it's still a bit lagging with obvious frame loss. So we retried it for times. The frame loss problem eventually might disappear for certain apps that run in the background, but over the system level, the 120Hz display with 240Hz sampling rate still provided quick reaction and led to a relatively smooth experience. As for the new chipset, the MTK Dimensity 1000 Plus, we couldn't perceive the best performance that it sought to provide. Although theoretically, it's not as powerful as the Snapdragon 865, the 1000 Plus is still an excellent option for gaming. But over the K30 Ultra, it's hard to draw the same conclusion, which could be blamed on Xiaomi's software optimization. As Xiaomi's first model running the 1000 Plus, obviously the K30 Ultra did not release its full energy with excellent heat control and battery management. And also due to the poor optimization, the K30 Ultra still applied a frame rate limit of 60Hz in almost all the games. So right now, you're not able to enjoy the gaming delight brought by the upgraded display. The good news is that Xiaomi has promised to fix the problem of frame rate limitation and optimize the chipset performance in the following updates for the K30 Ultra. But no certain date was informed, so just think about it carefully before you want to buy the K30 Ultra. Anyway, let's see how it's performed in benchmarks. In 3D Marks, the Ultra was able to activate the excellent performance of the Dimensity 1000 Plus. The result is pretty close to what we got on the K30 Pro. The Ultra was equipped with the LPDDR4X flash memory and UFS 2.1 storage, while the K30 Pro features the latest generation of memory and storage. So technically the K30 Pro could have a better performance on data transforming and system reaction. In Geekbench 5, it's pretty strange that the Ultra was not able to run the whole test and give us the result. Although we think it doesn't make sense to do gaming tests over the imperfect model at this point, we still did a simple test to show you how it looks like for gaming. In PUBG Mobile with the highest graphics settings, although we turn on the 120 FPS mode, the phone could only run the game at 60.21 FPS averagely. For stress test with Nimian Legend, the model could run the game at 39.6 FPS averagely. The result is much closer to the upper limit of the 1000 Plus chipset, but it still met the limitation of 60 FPS. During the game test, the model heated up easily, even though we run it under the 60 FPS mode. Unexpectedly, the most surprising part for the K30 Ultra is the camera's performance. The 64 megapixel main camera sports a Sony IMX682 sensor. From its samples, we could see that the main camera was able to give more accurate exposure, while the K30 Pro sometimes might overexpose and lost detail over extreme brightness. Especially when turned on HDR and AI colors, the Ultra's main camera was more able to deliver an excellent dynamic range to cover detail of both brightness and darkness. In addition, the Ultra's samples presented relatively correct white balance under most scenarios, while the K30 Pro's white balance usually turned out to be cooler and didn't meet the real scenario's needs. Both K30 models were equipped with a 13 megapixel wide-angle camera, but the Ultra mode's shooting angle is a bit narrower, but the aperture is larger. Under Auto HDR mode, their performance is similar to what they have on the main cameras. The Ultra's wide-angle samples surprisingly have a much wider dynamic range than the Pros. For example, in this photo, the Ultra was able to well handle the bright sky, while the K30 Pro just lost the detail of partial sky. And it also remained a better white balance detection. Meanwhile, thanks to the larger aperture, it seems that under the low light conditions with the same shot parameters, the Ultra also had better performance with good brightness than what we got on the K30 Pro. But it also got the same problems of most wide-angle cameras, which is the poor detail and unstable noise control for corners. The central image is always much better than the presentation of corners. In the comparison, another Ultra's advantage is the good job of removing more of the fringing around the edges. And the 50mm equivalent lens is for macro use. It's another highlight for the new camera combination. Compared to the macro camera on the Pro, the Ultra has faster focus speed and a bit closer focus, and the Ultra's macro could produce more delightful colors. But the macro's camera only features a small sensor with 5 megapixel resolution, so it's not really practical for low light uses. Both of them only feature electronic image stabilization, but lack OIS anti-shaking solution, so they both require the object to stay still. About its night performance, actually we're quite confused to draw a conclusion whether it got improvement compared to the HDR mode. The night mode looks so close to what we got under the HDR mode, and from shot parameters we also guess that it may not apply an exclusive night solution for night uses. The sample shot under the Ultra's night mode did not really get improved from the noise control and image detail. It seems that Xiaomi still need a lot of work to do on fixing the night mode. As for its portrait camera, the edge detection and distance detection were not as good as what we saw on the Mi 10 Ultra, especially with complicated backgrounds. The aperture adjustment didn't work out so well. Another improvement of the Ultra is the dual speakers for stereo sounds. Compared to the single speaker on the Pro, the audio improvement is quite impressive, but not as good as the symmetrical speakers on the Mi 10. Although the Ultra and Pro applied the same charging solution for their 4,500 mAh battery, the full charge test showed that the Ultra's charging efficiency still got slightly improved. The Ultra took around 66 minutes to complete the full charge, while the charging time for the Pro is a bit longer, eventually finished the test in around 74 minutes. So eventually we realized that the K30 Ultra is definitely one of the best options in its price range. However, as a 10th anniversary product, its improvement over the daily uses is not as what we had expected. It seems like an unfinished product that ought to provide better user experience, such as the poor supports on the 120Hz display and the new chipset. On the other hand, the camera performance is more impressive when compared to the K30 Pro. So that's it. Thanks for watching our review, and don't forget to click the like and subscribe buttons, which means a lot to us. This is Kieran from Gizmochina. We'll see you soon.